What is up everyone, this is Zach. Welcome to the Last Llama Gaming channel. Today I got a build for the Empire Soldier in Warhammer Chaosbane. So we're going to be using this awesome METEORIC set right here. Take a look at my attack and defense stats. We got a ton of defense, not a lot of attack, but this build does pump out a lot of damage, as you will see. So let's get right into the gear. Alright guys, so checking out the gear, we're going to equip the METEORIC set. Looks like it is called the Empire Herald as the name of the entire set. So go ahead and equip all 5 pieces. The set bonus that this gives you is when an enemy takes counterattack damage, all nearby enemies take a percentage of this damage. And as you can see, the counterattack damage is about 444,000. And then also the taunt skill is improved and no longer requires skill points to equip. So with that in mind, the weapon we're going to be using is the Grudge Settler. All damage to taunted enemies is increased, so all taunted enemies are going to take plus 200% damage. That goes hand in hand with the improved taunt skill that the armor gives us. The shield that we're going to be using is the METEORIC Iron Shield. It grants a sacred aura that slows nearby enemies and deals regular damage to them. Also does 4,444 damage. Now, I don't know why my damage is all 4s. This seems to correlate exactly with the counter attack damage on this armor. That's just a weird coincidence. So the amulet I'm going to be using is the Enchanted Jade Metal. It's not the most optimal amulet for this build, but it's just my favorite one personally. Decreases potion cooldown time by 40% and decreases healing by 20%. So your potion is up a lot quicker with this build. And it goes hand in hand with a passive that the soldier has. So if you have a different amulet, I have a few others right here. God skills deal more damage. You can equip another one if you so desire. This is just my personal favorite. The rings are also not the most optimal down here. I'm mostly using these for the stat boost that they give me rather than the ability it gives me. So you can equip other rings for this as well. So what is important on this build is the blessings. So as you can see, we have a ton of defense and I have no defensive blessings on this build. You don't really need defense with the Empire Soldier. He has a ton and his block ability is going to negate most of it. So I went for a crit chance and flat damage. So on each piece of gear I have 1.3% critical hit chance and 88 damage. Alright guys, so real fast I'm going to show you how to bless these pieces. Just set it up exactly like I have here. This left side is going to give you the critical hit chance and the right side is going to give you the hit chance as well. And then your bottom 2 ones are going to be your flat damage. You can use these yellow or orange gems or the red gems, whichever one you have more of. Alright guys, so with the gear and blessings out of the way, let's get into the skills. Alright, so for our basic skill, we're going to be using Incisive Breakthrough Mastered. It's going to give us minus 10% damage taken while we are using it, as well as a decent amount of physical damage and a lot of counterattack damage, which goes good with this armor set. I chose this over the other ones because it does provide counterattack damage. Next up is Whirling Slash Mastered. So this is going to hit all enemies around you. It's going to increase your block chance for each enemy hit, as well as do a lot of physical damage and also counterattack damage. So as you can see, around 31,000 counterattack damage. Once again, counterattack damage is good for this build. This is one of your main damage dealing abilities. So next up we have the taunt skill, the heroic version. So this is going to give you a damage bonus, a block chance bonus, as well as energy gain. You pretty much want to spam this as much as possible to hit as many enemies as possible and keep this up at all times because this is going to be a huge damage boost in correlation with your sword that also gives you plus 200% damage to all enemies that are taunted. Then we have the Banner of the Empire Mastered. So the reason I chose this banner over the defensive banner, Banner of the Order, is because once again you have so much defense you don't need any more, but this does offer you plus 25% damage, plus 100% counterattack damage. Once again, very good for this armor set. Minus 20% cooldown time and minus 20% energy cost, and you will be able to have this up at all times. The cooldown is so low you can spam this as soon as it runs out. Next up we have Sigmar's Wrath Mastered. Call upon Sigmar to be surrounded by a devastating fiery aura. For the effect duration, meteors rain down, damaging and slowing enemies. This is a very good skill for this build. This is kind of an AOE build. It's going to totally wreck all enemies around you in correlation with your shield which is also going to be doing an area of effect, and as you will see, this just melts mobs of enemies. Lastly, we have break through the ranks, the standard version. This is just a mobility option to get around the map faster and to also get out of situations where you are surrounded and you need to break away fast. Alright guys, getting into the passives, we have Bastion against Corruption Mastered. For each nearby enemy, block chance and damage dealt is increased and damage taken is reduced. This is a very good skill, one of the best on the Empire Soldier for fighting mobs, because you're always going to be surrounded and you're always going to be getting this huge bonus. Next, we have Indestructible Mastered. Block chance is increased and all damage is increased based on block chance. As you will see, we have a lot of block chance and we are getting a decent amount of damage from this, as well as increasing our survivability because we're going to be blocking more hits and more damage. Then we have Scourge of Pestilence Superior. Slowed or rooted enemies take more counterattack damage. Counterattack damage ignores a percentage of enemy armor. So the slowed effect that's going to proc this passive comes from our shield. So it grants a sacred aura that slows nearby enemies. So all enemies nearby are going to be affected by this passive, and counterattack damage ignores a percentage of enemy armor. So you're going to be ignoring 50% of their armor, as well as getting that huge boost to counterattack damage, which just correlates perfectly with this build. Lastly, we have Wisdom of the Apothecary. Potion cooldown time is reduced. I don't have any more skill points available to pick a higher tier version of this, so we're going with the standard. And this goes hand in hand with the Enchanted Jade Metal that I prefer. Now, if you're using a different amulet and you don't care about potion refresh time, you can equip whatever passive you think is best in this spot. This is just my personal preference. Then I'm using Master Blacksmiths. This is one of the passives you get from the Collector's Guild by leveling it up. So if you come down here, I think it is a level 18 passive. So you're gonna have to rank up your Collector's Guild to get this. If you don't have this, I would recommend a lower version. You could equip the maximum health plus 10%. That's going to give you a pretty decent defense bonus. As you can see, we jumped from 500,000 to 540,000. You are going to take a hit to attack though, but that's okay. It gives you a much more defense than it does attack. So if you have this, I recommend equipping this. Next up, we have the Blessed Talisman. Critical hit chance is increased plus 5%. Critical hit chance is always good. Plus 5% is a pretty big amount in this game. Alright guys, so now we're going to check out the God skill tree, and then we will finish up with the stats and some gameplay. So the path you are going to take on this build is you're going to start right here, and you're going to go follow this node all the way up to Sigmar's Wrath Mastered. But where all of your block chance and block damage comes from is when you follow this same path right here. You're going to keep going to the left, and you're going to want to get all of these blocked damage nodes. Block damage is more important than block chance, because if you have a high block chance and low block damage, you're still going to be taking a lot of damage through those blocks, because you're not going to be blocking most of that damage. Say the attack does 1,000 damage and you have 10% block damage, you're only going to be blocking 100 of that and taking 900. So prioritize block damage over block chance, which is what I do with this God skill tree setup. Just follow exactly what I have and you will get the maximum amount of block damage. So starting off with the stats, guys, we have 25,000 damage. That is very low in comparison to other builds for the Empire Soldier, as well as other characters in general. But this build is not all about damage. This build has a ton of survivability. You'll be able to survive much longer than with other characters, but it also does a lot of damage. Don't let this number deceive you. We have about 51% critical hit chance. That is very high. We're going to be critting very often, and since we have such low attack, it's just going to help us boost our damage even more. Critical hit damage is at almost 200%, and we are getting none of that from the God skill tree. Keep that in mind. We're getting all of that from our gear. We have about 100,000 maximum health, about 18,000 armor. We have a decent amount of counterattack damage, lower than I would like cooldown reduction, and I'll tell you why. Because this skill, Sigmar's Wrath, has a long cooldown, and if this build was optimized, you would want as high of a cooldown as possible, because you want this up as much as possible. So what I would recommend prioritizing on your gear is cooldown reduction number 1. I could not find hardly any gear after this patch with cooldown reduction on all of the armor pieces besides the helmet and the weapons. But if you can get cooldown reduction, or if you just want to spend the time farming prioritize cooldown reduction. Number 1, it's going to make this build much more effective if you can keep Sigmar's Wrath up as much as possible. And then the other 2 most important skills right here are block chance and blocked damage. As you can see, we're going to be blocking around 58% of all attacks on us, and we're going to be blocking 2000 damage. Alright guys, so getting into some gameplay, I'm going to be showing you on Chaos 4. I'm just showing you this so you don't think I changed it beforehand. This is actually on Chaos 4, and you can see I have the nice aura right here. This is going to be doing all of our damage. So this is a very simple build. All you want to do is spam your taunt, your banner, and your Sigmar's Wrath when you have it up, and also spam Whirling Slash when you are surrounded to get the most damage possible. Using your basic is not a bad idea either. It gives you minus 10% damage taken while you're using it, and it also gives you some energy if you are low. So let's go and see how fast I can kill stuff. So we're going to spam our taunt, our banner, and our Sigmar's Wrath. And as you can see, there's a ton of damage being procced on all of these enemies, and it clears mobs very freaking well. Now, the damage numbers it puts out are not very high, but it's the amount of those numbers that it's putting out. You're rarely going to see crits in the millions, hardly ever really with this build, but you're going to be doing a ton of procs, which is where all of your damage comes from. So it does struggle more with the bosses, but it is completely possible to run this on Chaos 4. Chaos 5, I kind of got stuck on a standstill. So if there is a way to do it on Chaos 5, you will probably have to optimize this build completely. But as it stands now, it can complete it on Chaos 4, and it is very easy to complete these missions on Chaos 3 and below. So if you're gonna do relic hunts with this build, which is what I recommend, this is not a boss killing build. This is purely a mob killing build. It's pretty much made for relic hunts in my opinion. I would recommend doing relic hunts on Chaos 3 or lower. You can do it on Chaos 4, but it's going to take you a long time and you run the risk of dying a lot more. So as you can see, whenever I activate Sigmar's Wrath, a ton of damage starts being pumped out, which is why I recommend having as high of a cooldown reduction as possible so you can keep that up as much as possible, because it's going to make this build a lot more effective, especially in these higher difficulties where the enemies take much longer to kill without the additional damage bonus from Sigmar's Wrath. Yeah guys, now that you have seen some gameplay, let me know what you think about this build. This is a very fun mob killing build for relic hunts. So that is going to do it for this build guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I know I said in my previous video I was going to move on from Warhammer Chaosbane, but I just realized I only had one build out for the Empire Soldier. I wanted to get at least one more out before I put this game down for a little while. And this was the set I was most interested in making a build for, and I think it turned out pretty well. Consider leaving a like if you enjoyed this build, and also consider subscribing for more gaming content. I'm going to be posting videos for Grim Dawn when I get deeper into the game and have a better understanding of it, as well as many other games upcoming in the future. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.